TIFU by not turning on the bathroom light, causing my wife to break my face. Last night I woke up at around 3 a.m. and had to use the bathroom. The street lamps in the parking lot of our apartment building provide a decent amount of light through the window for me to be able to see, so I didn't bother turning on the bathroom light, or even closing the door all the way. I finished and flushed, and after I washed my hands I noticed that there was a big ol' hang nail on my thumb. So I was standing in the middle of the bathroom with not so much light, carefully using a clipper to take care of it. I put the clippers down and I suddenly heard the door open, then all hell broke loose. For background, my wife was raised in a family where for the first 10 years of her life, her family basically lived in the middle of nowhere and were poor enough where they literally had to hunt for food because they couldn't afford groceries, so she learned pretty damn young how to be a deadly force of nature. When she was in high school, her house was burglarized while everyone was sleeping, and she was the one who woke up and witnessed people in the house going through their stuff, and of course that shit was traumatizing. She's also 6 feet 1 inch compared to my 5 feet 8 inches, and she works in an environment where she's constantly having to kick out shoplifters and just straight up sketchy people all the time. So needless to say, she's a fairly on edge, very strong, physically intimidating lady. So when she comes in to use the bathroom and she's not wearing her glasses, meaning she basically can't see 6 feet in front of her, and sees some figure in the dark just standing in the bathroom, what do her instincts tell her to do? Clap that son of a bitch. She punched me so hard in the face that I almost passed out. It's actually kind of hazy, but I just remember being in a ton of pain, then being in the passenger seat of my car, then at the hospital. Apparently part of my zygomatic bone on the right side of my face, underneath your eyes where your cheeks are, now has a fracture, and that whole side of my face just looks completely fucked. It supposedly shouldn't require surgery thankfully, but man does it hurt. What was really fun was that they actually made us talk to a social worker because since I told the doctor, my wife punched me in the face, they obviously suspected domestic violence, and I kept having to say, it was an accident. Completely understand why they had one interview us, but did they really have to do it while I was high as balls on painkillers that I had never taken before in my life? So now I'm chilling at home in recovery, and my wife feels terrible. I swear every time I wake up from a narcotic-induced nap I keep finding all sorts of treats on my nightstand as apology gifts: cookies, Kit Kat bars, potato chips. But I definitely learned that I need to make it very well known that I'm not some sketchy dude burglarizing our apartment from now on, apparently. TLDR. Too lazy to turn on the bathroom light. Wife who is taller and stronger than me has PTSD from people breaking into her house and thought I was a burglar. Wrecked the right side of my face with a punch comparable to fucking Saitama, and had to explain to the social worker at the hospital that I'm not being abused. Edit. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened. We already had an agreement of, don't walk around the house in the dark and make your presence known, to prevent anything like this from happening, and lo and behold I played a stupid game and won a stupid prize by being lazy. We don't keep firearms in our house, she's not going to kill me. The trauma is an explanation for wrecking my facial bones but not an excuse, but again, I did break our explicit agreement. She does feel really bad about it but I'm not going to guilt trip her over it. It was an accident, nothing more. But we both agreed now that A. She has to wear her glasses if she's leaving a room, even for a minute, B. We have a few night lights in the hallway, and C. Since we have separate bedrooms, if I'm in another part of the house, like the bathroom, completely understand why they had one interview us, but did they really have to do it while I was high as balls on painkillers that I had never taken before in my life? This is one of the most irritating parts of being at a hospital. Stupidly timed non-medical stuff. Sometimes useful stuff, as in this case, but horribly timed. Was in the ER with my wife and 1-year-old trying to find out if the shunt in his brain was failing and if he'd need pretty immediate surgery. And this moron kept trying to get us to fill out a survey on their billing department. Like, I know your boss told you to do this, but GTFO. This is really a problem with hospitals. I came into the ER for a kidney stone that was so bad I couldn't stop throwing up from pain. After a mighty cocktail of strong-ass painkillers, a dose and a half of Dilaudid finally did the trick at the end. I was finally not praying for death. I was also high as a fucking kite and literally couldn't stay conscious for more than a minute at a time. Of course that's when they send in billing man. Guy is asking me all sorts of complicated questions like my last name, and address, and insurance info. I couldn't answer him. Thank God my husband was there because God knows what they could have gotten me to sign. It feels so wrong that they seemingly on purpose pick the worst moments. Not just hospitals either. My mom is currently undergoing treatment for bladder cancer. It's not a dangerous, terminal kind, don't worry, and needs to go in for cystoscopies and scrapings, along with a few courses of chemo in her bladder. Well, I guess one time the doctor was double booked or something, because he gave her aftercare instructions while she was still coming out of the anesthesia. This was back when they weren't allowing relatives to come back with the patients, due to COVID, so it was literally just my drugged up mom, and the doctor, alone in the room, telling her what to take, what to avoid, how often she should cath, stuff like that. All while she just sits there, completely out of it, not retaining a bit of it. By the time she was actually alert and awake, he was already gone. The nurse couldn't really help much with questions, and turns out the doctor had already began the next appointment, so he couldn't be reached. She tried meeting with the patient advocate, but they were on lunch, so she just left a message, and we went home. We never actually heard back from the patient advocate. We tried calling them multiple times but never reached them. Believe me, the irony of the patient advocate being unreachable was not missed on us. After a few days we got a call from the scheduling department for the next appointment, and after hearing the story, he did what? They passed it up the chain, and we finally got a phone call scheduled with the doctor to explain the aftercare stuff, and we haven't really had other issues since. It just blows my mind how a doctor could do that though. Patient is semi-coherent, so they are probably awake enough to hear and remember these critical instructions that, if not followed correctly, can lead to excruciating pain or further complications. There's a silver lining here. At least you don't have to worry about your wife waking up hearing a noise and sending you to get killed by a home invader. By the time you wake up she'll have already TKO'd them. See, one would think, but unfortunately she had to be nerfed by not only fucking up her eyesight, but her hearing too. Otherwise she'd be too powerful. She has to wear hearing aids too. My brother once said she was Kung Fu Action Helen Keller, and it will never not be funny. I am going to hell LMAO God. So many people judging her for having PTSD, no experience with trauma much? All's well that ends well, and OP's conclusion is to turn the light on so she knows it's him, something that accommodates her triggers to avoid an issue. That's what you generally do when someone has a trauma response. We actually don't share a bedroom. We have very different sleep patterns and work schedules, so we decided a long time ago that we can't share a room, because we drove each other crazy when we tried. Literally lasted 2 weeks. I think I'd be super proud of my wife if this happened to me. Not even joking. Yeah, the medical bills suck and all, but that shit will heal. The best kind of spouse is the one who can take care of themselves. Seeing my wife on the gun range freaking nailing targets at 30 yards as always brings a smile to my face. It's kinda hot too. Can I ask, kinda unrelated, did they ask about domestic abuse? You're in a very rare situation here, so I just wanted to ask since you rarely see this. If a woman came in with a broken face and her husband admitted to accidentally hitting her, the hospital guaranteed would have brought in police. I am curious if they would do it since your gender roles are reversed. Did you not read the whole thing? What was really fun was that they actually made us talk to a social worker because since I told the doctor, my wife punched me in the face, they obviously suspected domestic violence, and I kept having to say, it was an accident. Completely understand why they had one interview us, but did they really have to do it while I was high as balls on painkillers that I had never taken before in my life? And TLDR. Too lazy to turn on the bathroom light. Wife who is taller and stronger than me has PTSD from people breaking into her house and thought I was a burglar, wrecked the right side of my face with a punch comparable to fucking Saitama, and had to explain to the social worker at the hospital that I'm not being abused. She's really not. In fact, we already had an agreement of, don't walk around in the house in the dark, for years, which also applies to other rooms. My own dang fault for neglecting that agreement we already had. We've been married for 6 years and this is the first, and last, time I've broken that rule. Chill.